In this video, we're going to do a little bit of de-ghettoifying the Ranger. For instance, when I installed my quick release steering wheel, I broke the clock spring. So now the horn button doesn't work. So that does nothing. I know it's not the fault of the steering wheel because I also use this wheel on my Integra and it works fine there. What happened is that this adapter is not actually made for the Ranger, it's made for an F-150. I just made it work. And in the process of making it work, I broke the clock spring so that the connector to the horn doesn't work anymore. It's broken. I can't even get access to it. So the way I've been honking the horn is I've got the wire here. It's a green and yellow wire that I snipped from the bundle from the clock spring, and now I just touch the ground. It's kind of ghetto. Sometimes I miss it when I'm in traffic and I want to honk at someone. So I want to get a button that's fixed to the dashboard somewhere to make that a little more convenient. So I found this button thing. It's pretty cool. You press it, it releases, and I've jerry-rigged it already so I can show you how it works. Basically, I'm just gonna connect it to the wire there. With the wires connected, it does nothing, but if I touch the button, it works really easy. So what I want to do is I want to mount this like here, because that's really convenient and a lot easier than trying to touch the wire. Like, see how I kind of miss sometimes? So I want to have a much better way to get to the horn. Since I have to take this apart, I'm also going to be replacing the bulbs in the dash. I tried to do this about 2 years ago actually, and I didn't like the outcome because I used LED bulbs and it left this dead zone up around 60-70 miles an hour, which is kind of annoying. So I'm gonna go back to a regular incandescent bulb. So quick thing, I'm not going to give you a whole in-depth how to disassemble the dashboard. I'm just gonna put a link up in the corner to the Chris Fix video that I used to do this. The main reason is that I've disassembled the dash. I don't really care for interior. You can see it's stripped out in here. So literally all the screws, there's 2 screws that should be here, they're not there anymore. Also, no stereo because it's an off-road truck. There's usually 2 bolts that go here. I've already removed them, and so it just pops out like that. And then you can disconnect the cigarette plug seal like that. And then there's usually a kick panel here, like a metal kick panel and a plastic kick panel. Those are gone. I don't even use those anymore. And I removed all the screws. So literally all I gotta do now is just pop it off like that. And then on this side, just pop it off. Once you get this stupid thing loose, we're gonna figure out where we want to put the button. Chris mentions this in his video, but there are 4 bolts that we want to remove to get the instrument cluster out. So there are these 4 black ones that are attached to the little white sections of the cluster. Once you've removed all 4 bolts, carefully pull the cluster back, and there are 3 connectors you need to disconnect. There are 6 size 194 mini bulbs that go on the back of this cluster. To remove them, simply twist them counterclockwise and pull them back away from the cluster. And whenever you're dealing with glass bulbs, it's a good idea to wear gloves because the oils in your hands can deteriorate the glass on the bulb and they won't last as long. Remove the old bulbs from the sockets, put the new ones on, and then twist the sockets back onto the cluster. While I was here, I decided to pull the airbag error bulb. In a previous video, I showed you how to bypass this light if you have an aftermarket steering wheel using a resistor, but this is a lot easier. Before bolting everything back together, make sure that it works. Here you can see that the center section is still dark, and it turns out that the bulb is not working at all. At least that's what I thought. So what I did was I borrowed a bulb from another section of the cluster that works, and plugged it into the same spot. And it looks like it's a socket that doesn't work, because this bulb works perfectly fine over here. Just to be thorough, I stole another bulb from another spot in the cluster and tried to plug it into the top center, and sure enough it doesn't work, but the bulb that's from the center works in the other spot. It looks like it wasn't the LED bulb's fault at all, it was just a dead zone on the cluster. I'm just going to send it for now and then screw the old one back in. Make sure to do it gently and then hand torque it down so you don't strip the screws. I did some of the wiring prep on the bench because it's a little bit easier than doing it in the truck. I started by stripping the end of the wire, twisting it to keep everything nice and tight, and then use an eyelet connector so I could connect to ground. Insert the wire into the connector, crimp it, and use a heat gun to melt the heat shrink. This will help make sure that you have a nice solid connection with the connector and the wire. Next, strip the other end of the wire, twist it tight, and install it onto the switch. Remove the lock ring, and use it to measure how deep you're going to drill with your graduated drill bit. I taped it off here so I knew how far to drill. Next, mark your hole, and use a punch to get the hole started so that the drill bit doesn't dance around the material. Take your time here. It's better to go too slowly than go too fast and then drill away too much material. I did several passes until I was happy with the hole size. You definitely don't want to drill out too much because then the switch will be too loose. Thread the lock ring back onto the back side of the switch and screw it down. Next, we'll connect the horn wire from the truck to the switch. For this joint, I used one of these solder and seal butt connectors. They're pretty convenient. Just slide them onto the wire like a heat shrink, and make sure that you connect the two wires in the middle where the metal band is. Before applying heat, I tested the connection to make sure that the horn worked, and then use a heat gun to melt the heat shrink and the solder in the middle. Next, connect the wire to the switch and reassemble the dash. I used one of the old kick panel bolts to secure the ground wire. And lastly, I reinstalled the stereo trim. I'll put a radio in here eventually, I just need to figure out how to mount it because it looks like the mounting brackets are missing. So that's pretty much it for this project. Super simple. If you're looking for the horn wire, it is this green and yellow wire that I tapped into right there. But you can also get to it if you go in towards the back of the dash here. There's a green and yellow wire right there. And honestly, in hindsight, it probably would have been cleaner to wire it like this and do the ground to that instead of where I have it over here. And probably would have been cleaner to just connect instead of up here, but connect to there. But you know what? It works. And that's all that really matters. If you guys have any questions, post them in the comments. And if you're new here and you like the Ranger content, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you are notified when I post more Ranger videos. I have a bunch of new stuff coming in. I've got new shocks for the front of the truck, and I've got rock lights and a bunch of other little things, like super budget friendly stuff. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.